Good morning, good morning, good morning. And it is finally a really lovely morning. It's just gone 8:15. I'm going to go the scenic route. It's the first really sort of nice summer's day, I suppose. Although it's rained overnight. Just going to whiz out in front of this lorry. Don't really want to follow a lorry all the way down these winding bends. So, how are you? Well, are you well? I hope. I'm well. Had a bit of bad news. A good friend of mine told me last week he got lung cancer. So he's going up to Guy's to get that operated on. So I don't know what the detail is on that. He probably couldn't even tell me himself if I asked him. But that's a bit of sad news. Especially as he's 76 and he's got a 5-year-old son. So, which is difficult, isn't it? It's an ethical dilemma, you know. His son's going to be severely disadvantaged when his dad dies because his mum's got no money, so they're really dad's paying for the rent on the flat, school and everything. His son's not in this country, and you don't know what's going to happen to his family, you know. So it's always tempting from an ethical and moral point of view to think, well, what can you do, you know. But you know, the amount of money he's sending them would amount to half of my pension. And I don't know if I could justify to my family sending half of my pension to, you know, not a stranger, but like a third party family. It's money that they could spend, they could use. And also, you know, this was inevitable. When you have a child at 71, you know this is going to happen. This is always going to happen. And it's happened. So, you know, and although it's very sad and sort of really should discourage anybody from having children at a very late age like that, if they're not very financially secure, it is what it is, you know. As the magistrate says, we are where we are. So I shall do what I can, but I don't want to get involved in, you know, promising that I'll take over his obligations to keep his wife in accommodation. She'll have to do what she needs to do, which will probably be to move in with her mother. Anyway, it's not really the subject. That's just a bit of background of what's on my mind at the moment. It's Wednesday. Monday was a bank holiday. We're booked up today. We're booked up Friday morning, and Tuesday and Thursday I'm doing babysitting. Well, I actually don't think I'm doing babysitting tomorrow. I think that's actually turned out not to be necessary. But I certainly did babysitting yesterday. And it's, you know, it's good fun. Got 3 grandchildren and a dog, take them over the park. They play on the swings. They're a bit older now. They're sort of 10, 8 and 4. So the 8-year-old and the 4-year-old play football, or the 10-year-old and the 4-year-old play on the swings, while the 8-year-old shoots some hoops. And I'm throwing the dog around. So they're pretty low maintenance now, those kids. As they get older, you'll find that's the case. So, talking of high maintenance, I'm trying to get my annual accounts, you know, sorted. And I use a famous, not famous, but I mean a well-known accountant in the dental, a well-known dental accountant, let's put it that way. I've used them for about 5 years. And I'm not at all sure that they're not useless. I'd like to think they're not useless, and people who are useless go to great lengths to hide the fact that they are useless. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about they're really doing a good job of hiding the fact that they are useless, because they're useless to me on the things that I need them to do. My financial year ends at 30th September, like so many do, and just because it allows you to defer the payment of your tax for a bit more than if it was your financial year ended, say, end of February or something. So, and we're pretty good with our accounts. I mean, I'm a single-handed practitioner. We used to use QuickBooks, which is an accounting program, and I used to like it. We used to get like financial reports and stuff like that. But they didn't like QuickBooks. They couldn't handle QuickBooks. Or to be more precise, I was the only dentist they said, that used QuickBooks. And I'm prepared to accept that because I know most dentists chuck all their receipts in a shoebox in the vault. But QuickBooks was a big program, it's very big. It's much bigger in the United States than it is in the UK. But the trouble is, to enable them to run all these reports on my figures, they had to buy a copy of QuickBooks themselves. And the accountant's copy is expensive. I should imagine it's probably several £1,000s. The idea being that they can then have a number of clients who use QuickBooks and interrogate their data and reformat it and report on it and produce accounts out of it very quickly, using all these sort of extra features that aren't in the consumer version. But of course they didn't want to do that. And they said I was the only one using it, and so obviously they'll very quickly negate the sort of the £3,000 I pay them will very quickly be negated by the £2,900 they'd have to spend on buying an accountant's copy and keeping up the subscription. So I think they got a knockoff copy, or they bought a client copy, and then just put my accounts in that and just run the reports off, and then put it in their accounting software. But of course they didn't like doing that because it was non-standard, So they then asked me to use this online thing called Xenox or Xerox or something, Xenix, I can't remember. And that was an absolute disaster because the complexity of a program that runs on your PC that's been developed over, say, 30 years far exceeds the sort of the level of programming that can be run in your browser using a program that's been going for a couple of years and is probably still being debugged and really is only designed for the American market. And I had, especially when it says, oh, let us have access to your bank accounts, and it'll all happen automatically. You don't have to type the data in. We'll just read all the data out of your bank account, and hey presto, you'll get your accounts, reports, monthly accounts, annual profit and loss, balance sheet, etc. But of course it doesn't work like that. It never works like that. And there's the learning curve, learning how to do it all differently, because it was a substantially different approach. So we gave that up pretty well straight away. So what we did was we then fell back on a spreadsheet. And I've got a nurse who's particularly good with figures and happy with spreadsheets and knows, what bills are what. And so we just do it in columns and rows. And so at the end of the year, we just send them this spreadsheet, which has got 12 pages in it, and they should sort it out. Now that should be, you cannot make it any more simpler for them. With the one exception that when we had some spare cash, we put it in a deposit account. And in that deposit account, we changed it into Bitcoin. Because I thought that the upside of holding it in Bitcoin was more than the upside of holding it in cash, which was the purchasing power of cash was depreciating pretty quickly at the time. Inflation was about 10%. So, you might as well put it in a shoebox with a rat for the amount of cash you were going to have left. So that decision was amply justified. I am a financial fucking genius compared to most dentists and most accountants, which is a quality that doesn't endear me to anybody. Knowing and telling people you're more intelligent than them never makes you friends. And so when Bitcoin's doubled this year, and so I'm very happy that we did that. But is the accountant happy that we've done that? Oh my God. I have spent over 10 years now being told by a bunch of low foreheads that Bitcoin is a Ponzi, it's the greater fool theory, the government's going to ban it, it's only used for money laundering by criminals, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I've had to put up with all of that for years. And it's all just starting to quieten down now. People are sort of more clever people who looked at it previously and dismissed it are now starting to say, yeah, well, actually, I can see how it works now. And that's the problem with Bitcoin, is it combines everything that people don't know about computers with everything that people don't know about money. And you don't, just because you're an accountant doesn't mean you know about money. An accountant is a bean counter. That's all they are. They just count the beans. And they don't even do that all that well. About 5 years ago, when money was really tight, I was a bit late paying their bill. And they rang me up and they said, look, we know money's a bit tight, so take the time paying the bill, pay us when you've got the money. So I'm like, all right, that's very nice of you, thank you very much, I will. So then the next month he rings me up and he said, this is not my current accountant, this is another accountant at the same firm. He said, oh, Derek, he said, look, I've got a ton of advice here I want to give you. Ton of advice. But I can't give it to you because you're not up to date with your payments. So can you, as soon as you clear your bill, then normal service could be resumed, which I thought was a bit odd because they've never ever given me a bit of advice about anything. So eventually, obviously, the bill was cleared, and I was like, well, where's this ton of advice then? Not crickets. Just nothing. Just a hollow claim that their service was being suspended, whereas in fact they don't provide an advice service. Now, perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps accountants shouldn't provide an advice service. Perhaps they are just an interface between you and the Inland Revenue. I can't. They would have to save me quite a bit of money to justify their fees. And I don't think they do. Honestly, I think I'll be better off with a cheaper non-dental accountant because I'm getting no advice anyway. But anyway, now let's bring me on to the main subject, right, which is the Bitcoin account. So like last year, they've known I've had a Bitcoin account for a few years. So it's not like the first year they've had to decide what to do about it. So last year he rang me up and he said, yeah, you got some money in Bitcoin, haven't you? And I said, yes. This is, by the way, this is a business account. It's wholly owned by the company. The company's gone through KYC, AML. We do it annually. They ask us what our company account number is, why we're trading as, well, we've got a trading name and a different, whereas the limited company has got a completely different name. And we have to explain to them every year what trading as means. And they want to shareholders register. And they won't accept the one from Companies House. I mean, Companies House is the definitive register of shareholders, isn't it? And I've got, I think there are 10 shares allocated, of which I've bought one for £1. So you cannot get more simple than that, can you, in terms of a share structure? But I've sent them the company's house share register report, and they said, no, we want the one from your company, that's signed by the company secretary. So in fact, what they're doing, they're really saying to me, like, just make it up, just we want one that you've put together yourself. We're not interested in the official one. the one that your government maintains as the official register. We'd rather you told us. So I said, look, I've got one share worth £1. Have at it. do your worst. So anyway, they wrote back and said, yeah, fair enough. You're squeaky clean. So the accountant rings up and last year and he said, how's your Bitcoin doing? And I said, well, they're not so good. They've gone down a bit this year. And I'll never forget his comment. He said, oh dear. Oh dear. I thought, you have not got the first daddy, have you, about anything? This comes back to my point about accountants not being economists. They know about accounting, but they don't know about money. You'd be hard pressed if I was to ask him what money was, what the definition of money was, and what makes a good money. He probably wouldn't know. That's outside his purview. He's more about just reading handouts from the Inland Revenue and working out what the tax treatment is of various types of assets. And the easier the better. Now, let's not forget that these accountants, right? There were no such thing as dental accountants when I qualified. The reason why there are dental accountants is because some particularly enterprising accountants realise that dentists are cash cow. They've got reasonably simple accounts and pots of money. So they decided to set themselves up as dental accountants, and they attracted dentists because you went to a dental accountant because he said to you, I know what you can claim. As a dentist, I'm a specialist. We've dealt with the Inland Revenue and we know what other dentists are claiming, and so we can tell you what to claim, and so you can put your things that you claim against tax up. And so you're like, okay, fine. Now, in fact, I think the only thing that I claim against my profits is the £576, which is the BDA membership. And that was like not fair, because it's literally BDA membership and not any other membership. So if you're a member of the Periodontal Society or something, if you're a periodontist, you can't claim that. And when the GDPA was running, if you were, which is a membership association, you couldn't claim that. And yet, because the BDA is a favoured association, and it is assumed that every dentist is a member, whereas in fact that's far from the case, then every dentist is automatically credited with the cost of BDA membership against their tax, even if they're not a member. So I'm getting £576 deduction for an expense that I don't have. And I didn't ask for it. I've never been a member of the BDA, to my knowledge, not since the early 80s probably anyway. And yet I've always had that, because they always stick it on. So we've gone from oh dear last year to him saying, how's your Bitcoin doing? You told me you got quite a lot of Bitcoin. So, and I said, yeah, we'll send you what you need. What do you need? So he said, well, I need to know from like the month before, 1 month either side of your financial year, what you put in and what you took out. So I thought, that's easy enough. I actually found out, basically he wanted to know my opening balance on the first day of the tax year, my closing balance on the last day of the tax year. And when I told him that, he then said he wanted like a list of transactions. So I sent him a list of transactions in PDF format, and I even exported it as a CSV, so he could import it into Excel and do what analysis he wanted on it. So anyway, months go by, more tumbleweed comes past. And then he gives me a ring and he said, well, we're still making inquiries, into this crypto account, of course. And, he said, it's been escalated to a higher level. He said people at a higher level than me are now sort of asking questions about whether or not to sign the accounts off. So it's quite obviously he doesn't sign the accounts off. He just does the accounts and then sends them up to one of the partners of this firm to get them signed off. And they're wetting their knickers over the crypto. They're probably about 10 years behind everybody else in terms of crypto. They're probably still at the it's money laundering, it's KY, there's no KYC on it, it's a Ponzi scheme, blah blah blah. They certainly don't treat it as a currency, which is what they should do. The UK government is not at all keen on Bitcoin being treated as a currency. Because it would be in competition with the pound, and it's a pretty unequal competition. It's a competition the pound would really, really badly lose. So and he was like, they want to know what the balances were on various dates. So I'm like, at this point, I've sent him the balance, the opening balance, the closing balance. I've sent him all the transactions, and now he's coming back to me and he says he wants to know what the balances were on various dates. So I said to him, well, yeah, send me the dates and I'll send you the dates, I said, but if they're the dates of the transactions, I don't know whether that's before or after the money was put in or the money was taken out. You could obviously work that out from the spreadsheet of transfers that I sent to him. So, and this bloke, when he rang me, he sounded like a whipped dog. You've got to be careful on the phone these days because microphones are so good that, in the old days when you could ring someone from a toilet having a plop, have gone. They know you're in the toilet. People know that you've just woken up. People know you're outdoors or driving a car. You know what I mean? Excuse me. And if you've got a bit of emotional intelligence, I could tell that he was dancing around this because, and he's saying, all things like, well, there's been new HMRC guidance come out, and so the higher ups are very concerned, about signing these crypto. And again, he said the old thing. He said, Derek, he said, as usual, he said, you're the only dentist we've got who's doing this. And I'm like, well, I can't be the only dentist that's got some foreign currency reserves. I can't be the only dentist that's got might have some gold or something, dental gold, that needs to be revalued every year. I mean, it's only an impairment review. Oh, he's like, yeah, well, the Inland Revenue are very, they're very funny about crypto these days. I'm like, right, well, fine. They'll have to get unfunny about it, won't they? It's a fact of life. I don't think he'd be ringing me up and nearly crying if I got some yen or something. So, anyway, it's all going quiet again now. So that must be nearly 3 weeks now. It's rung. And we're now in May, aren't we? We're past the middle of May. He's had my figures since November, so that's over 6 months. I can't ring him up because if I ring him up and say, come on, then what's going on? Chances are he'll just throw his hands up in despair and say, yeah, well, sorry, but on this occasion, the partners can't sign off on your accounts because you've got this secret Swiss bank account sort of thing that we've got no visibility into, and therefore we can't send it. Which I think is frankly hilarious because they don't sign off the. I sign off the accounts. When you get your accounts as a dentist, half of the bloody accounts is a page that says, I, Mr. Angry, agreed to indemnify my accountants against any problems with these accounts. I understand these are my accounts, and I'm submitting them to the Inland Revenue. And if there's a problem with them, the Inland Revenue needs to ring me. So I indemnify them completely, and yet they're still making a fuss about it. So I'll keep you up to date with how that goes. But I think a change of accountants might be in order, because they are taking the right royal piss. Do you know what I mean? They don't really know what they're doing, and I don't. I mean, it's far better for me to get an accountant that knows about crypto and doesn't know about dentistry, because dentistry is simple, rather than an accountant that knows about dentistry, which is not accounting 101, but doesn't know or has got some sort of inbuilt prejudice against crypto. Anyway, like I said, let you know how it goes. All right, nice to talk to you. Bye.